What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, we are going to be talking about 10 deaths of Wolverine #1 by Benjamin Percy and Federico Vicentini. And in this video, we are going to be able to answer the question of what happened to Moira MacTaggert after the events of Jonathan Hickman's final X-Men story, Inferno. And we're also going to talk about what kind of a story does this narrative represent. Whereas if 10 lives of Wolverine is Quantum Leap, 10 deaths of Wolverine is the Terminator. And we're going to talk about why that's the case and more right now. But first, if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, hit that subscribe button. I post multiple videos throughout the week, plus live stream the Blerd Cave every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So hit that bell button. That way you don't miss anything. Also, while we're at it, if you enjoy the video, Hulk smash that like button. Now with that out of the way, let's talk about 10 deaths of Wolverine #1.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Okay, so this story picks up not from what we left off with 10 lives of Wolverine #1, where Wolverine was sent into, I believe it was the 60s, to reunite with Team X so that he can continue protecting Charles Xavier. In 10 deaths of Wolverine, it picks up immediately after the end of Jonathan Hickman's Inferno #4, specifically the part where Moira MacTaggert had walked through the Krakoan gate for the last time, no longer a mutant, but now a normal human being, thanks to Mystique and Destiny using Forge's mutant power dampening gun to nullify her mutant powers, thus being able to kill her and cementing this current House of X timeline as the only timeline going forward. But unfortunately for Destiny and Mystique, they weren't able to get an opportunity to kill Moira MacTaggert thanks to Cypher interfering, but now we know that Moira is free and Mystique is still on the hunt for her. She's not letting her out of her sight that easily. She's not giving up easily either. She is bird dogging Moira MacTaggert every step of the way. And not only is Moira MacTaggert being hunted by Mystique, but she's also being hunted by 3 other entities as well. While Moira MacTaggert is trying to give Mystique the slip, Moira winds up discovering that she's incredibly ill, and that illness being cancer. She is suffering from lung cancer. So there's one thing that's hunting her down as it is. So not just Mystique, but apparently death, literal, actual death is waiting around the corner from her. And the only thing that can keep her alive long enough to ensure that she gets what she needs done is going to be if she can get her hands on Krakoan medicines. However, Krakoan medicines, as were pointed out in House of X and other X-Men stories, but more specifically pointed out here, the Krakoan medicines can't cure cancer. They would only be able to buy Moira more time. And we know that Moira's going to need this time because it seems as though she might be trying to create that mutant cure that she had come up with in House of X #2 that was revealed and was the original reason why Destiny and Mystique killed her in the first place. We know that she has memory of how to create it, but will she actually be able to create it? And we also know that Mystique, once again, is still hot on her heels, and while Moira doesn't necessarily have all the time that she needs, because once again, she doesn't have access to Krakoan medicines anymore, we discover that she does have people looking out for her. One of those people, oddly enough, is Jane Foster, the Valkyrie. Now, the reason why Jane Foster is there, it's very likely in reference to a story that we read from Destiny earlier in the issue, where she talks about a man in New York named Edward, who oddly enough ran into an individual who he believed to be actual death. And that this man asked his boss for an advance in pay so that he could get away and hide out for a while. This boss being a man mentioned as Jonathan. And while this Edward was able to actually get away, fleeing away to New Orleans, Jonathan actually meets this individual Death in a bar. And apparently, Death wasn't looking for Edward at that time. It was looking for Jonathan. He tells Death that you gave Edward quite a scare, with Death replying that he wasn't wasn't the only one surprised. I couldn't understand what he was doing in New York when I had an engagement with him tomorrow in New Orleans. Basically stating that death always arrives, that death is always looking out for you. Death and fate are intertwined and you can't escape either of them. That very likely he was there to kill that man Jonathan. That's why he was in New York that day. But he also was going to kill Edward the very next day in New Orleans. Regardless of whatever it was they thought their plans were, regardless of whatever they thought they could do that could help them escape. And something tells me that Valkyrie is going to be sticking very closely to Moira MacTaggert, because in the end, Moira is going to have to die and Valkyrie is going to be the one to usher her across. Not only that, but we know that X-Desk is also looking for Moira MacTaggert in this issue, whereas Dolores Ramirez, the leader and head of X-Desk, they have discovered that Moira MacTaggert is alive. This is information they did not have before. As far as humanity is concerned, Moira MacTaggert has been dead ever since X-Men Volume 2, number 108, which originally came out in 2001. Moira MacTaggert has been presumed dead ever since, having died from the legacy virus. As far as humanity is concerned, Moira MacTaggert never returned. But now that facial recognition has seen Moira MacTaggert running around after she has recently escaped from Mystique thanks to Valkyrie, X-Desk knows they need to get their hands on her because, as Dolores points out, she's either a defector from Krakoa or she was their prisoner and got away. Either way, she has information that will be valuable to X-Desk, and they want to make sure they get their hands on it because, once again, and I've said this multiple times, Dolores Ramirez, she doesn't have any quarrel with mutants themselves. However, her job is to protect humanity from mutants, and that kind of puts her in a really interesting position where, once again, as I've said it on multiple different occasions, that I feel like when Jerry Duggan is the one who is writing the character of Dolores Ramirez, she comes off a lot more human, and I don't know, maybe she just kind of seems to have a better head on her shoulders in regards to how to deal with mutants and her perspective on them. As we saw recently in X-Men number 5 and 6, that Dolores doesn't have any beef with actual mutants, that she thinks human supremacists are an actual bigger problem for the Earth and humanity than mutants themselves. She doesn't think that mutants are actually a danger to humankind. However, I feel like when Benjamin Percy is writing Dolores Ramirez, he writes her almost more as like a typical anti-mutant X-villain. But we don't know what the end game here is with that, but we do know they want to get their hands on Moira, and there's a plot device that is brought up while she's being chased, and it's something that's referred to as the Epiphany memory drive. This is a ocular implant, as is stated, that records everything you see and everything that you say, and it automatically uploads everything that you observe to a cloud storage. This is something that has gotten Moira's attention because I think she's keenly aware that she's not going to survive this, and she wants to make sure that any information she has actually survives to see the light of day and that the right people get to it. She knows that if she dies, this is it for her. She won't be reincarnated, or who knows, maybe she could be. We know that the mutant power nullifier isn't permanent. It could go away, it takes time and sometimes the right circumstances, but who knows? Anything can happen here. But something tells me she's gonna come back to revisit this Epiphany memory drive so that should something happen to her, she would be able to get that information back somehow. Though granted, if her powers were to reactivate, it would just reset the timeline, so it wouldn't matter if it was uploaded to a cloud storage or not. So I don't think her actual death and rebirth are gonna play any part into that, but who knows, maybe she could actually be resurrected by mutant kind if they chose to. Once again, her powers have been taken away. She is still technically a mutant, but she no longer has her powers, and if she were to be resurrected, it would be a grave issue for Krakoa, and I don't think anybody's gonna want to have her resurrected. I mean, she is persona non grata, but if she could somehow, some way get herself resurrected on Krakoa, that wouldn't reset the timeline, so who knows? But any deaths she had after that probably would. But once again, I don't think the 5 would do it, but if they did, they could even edit her X gene to where maybe it wouldn't activate or work the same way as it did before, resetting an entire timeline. That's all pie in the sky stuff. We don't really know what's going to happen there. Now, I did say that there were 3 other entities other than Mystique who were hunting her down. We mentioned the cancer that is bearing down on her, as well as by proxy Jane Foster Valkyrie, who is also following closely in her steps, and of course we talked about X-Desk. who is also trying to hunt her down. But those are not the only things that are after her. There's yet another. You may have noticed that, this is a 10 Deaths of Wolverine book, but we haven't talked about Wolverine in the slightest. Well, now it's time to talk about it. While Logan is quantum leaping from each of his bodies across his entire history to protect Charles Xavier from annihilation at the hands of Omega Red, there's another Wolverine who's also out there hunting, and this one has made it his life's mission to track down Moira MacTaggert. We discover this when Black Tom Cassidy realizes that something is wrong with Krakoa, and what he discovers is what appears to be some kind of tumor that has grown out of Krakoa, and inside of it is a techno-organic version of Wolverine. A Wolverine who is literally covered in the techno-organic virus, the same techno-organic virus that makes up the Phalanx. What also makes up the Technarch character Warlock, which a piece of has been used to replace Moira's arm. Something tells me that with everything that happened in Inferno, what we learned about the trickster Titan, who is essentially a Phalanx from the future, who sent Omega Sentinel back in time so that she could undo what the X-Men and mutant kind had done in the future, something tells me that that trickster Titan sent back something else of his own. And this is a version of Wolverine who has been overrun with that techno-organic virus. He's become a straight-up hunter-killer, able to access Moira's no place, get her sent so that he can track her down. This guy is basically the Terminator. Now at this point, he may as well have just looked in the phone book and just looked up every name that was Sarah Connor and is now just going around door to door taking out anybody who's on his list. And one of the things on his list is not just Moira MacTaggert. He's also there to stop the operation that Wolverine is on right now, quantum leaping through the past, because he pulls up on Charles Xavier and Jean Grey as they are transferring Logan's consciousness across the past telepathically. And now it looks like there's about to be a big duke-a-roo between two of the most powerful telepaths on Krakoa and the techno-organic Wolverine, who is the best there is at what he does. And what he does, I got a sneaking suspicion, is not going to be very nice. This issue, I'm not gonna lie, I really like 10 Lives of Wolverine, but man, 10 Deaths of Wolverine, I feel like this is more direct sequel to what was going on with Inferno, which just makes it infinitely already an amazing story right now. I mean, not to say that 10 Lives is not good, I'm enjoying it, but like I was actually expecting to be some kind of a back and forth between these two stories, but they're telling, while yes, same and similar stories, but this is still different and it feels fresh, and I'm here for both of them. Like I said, we're only 2 issues in between what is about to be a 10-issue story arc, but man, I'm into this. I'm really into this. I wasn't expecting to like this as much as I am, and yet here I am, loving every second of it. Already planning to pre-order the hardcover trade when it becomes available. That's how much I'm already enjoying the story. But anyways, you guys let me know what you thought about all this. What do you think about this techno-organic Wolverine, and how much more Inferno Aftermath do you think we're gonna get from this? Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.